Evil Empire is the second studio album by American rap metal band Rage Against the Machine. It was released on April 16, 1996, almost 4 years after the band's self-titled debut album. The band is the eponymous second studio album by the band, released on September 22, 1969. It is also known as the Brown Album. According to Rob Bowman's liner notes for the 2000 reissue, the band has been viewed as a concept album, with the songs focusing on people, places and traditions associated with an older version of Americana. Pretzel Logic is the third studio album by the American rock band Steely Dan, released on February 20, 1974, by ABC Records. It was written by principal band members Walter Becker and Donald Fagen. They recorded the album at the Village Recorder in West Los Angeles with producer Gary Katz and prominent Los Angeles-based studio musicians. Kidda is the fourth studio album by the English rock band Radiohead, released in October 2000 on Parlophone. Burnt out after recording and promoting Radiohead's acclaimed 1997 album OK Computer, songwriter Tom York envisioned a radical change in direction for their next album. Marquee Moon is the debut album by American rock band Television. By 1974, they had become a prominent act on the New York music scene and generated interest from a number of record labels. The band rehearsed extensively in preparation for Marquee Moon and, upon signing to Elektra Records, recorded most of its songs in single takes. Tonight's the Night is the sixth studio album by Canadian musician Neil Young, released in 1975 on Reprise Records, catalog Ms. 2221. It was recorded in 1973, its release delayed for 2 years. It peaked at number 25 on the Billboard 200. Hello Nasty is the fifth studio album by the Beastie Boys. It was released on July 14, 1998 via Capitol Records and sold 681,000 copies in its first week, debuting at number 1 on the Billboard 200 album sales chart. Bet Sounds is the 11th studio album by the American rock band The Beach Boys. Released on May 16, 1966, it initially met a lukewarm critical and commercial reception in the United States, but received immediate success abroad, where British publications declared it the most progressive pop album ever. The Doors is the debut album by American rock band The Doors, recorded in August 1966 and released on January 4, 1967. It was originally released in different stereo and mono mixes, and features the breakthrough single Light My Fire, extended with an instrumental section mostly omitted on the single release, and the lengthy song The End with its edible spoken word section. Astral Weeks is the second studio album by Northern Irish singer-songwriter Van Morrison, released in November 1968 on Warner Brothers Records. Widely acclaimed, it has had an enduring impact on both listeners and other musicians. Van Halen is the debut studio album by American rock band Van Halen. Released on February 10, 1978, the album peaked at number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100. The album became widely recognized as the band's popularity grew, selling more than 10 million copies in the United States by 1999 and achieving RIAA Diamond status. The Yes album is the third studio album from the English progressive rock band Yes, released in February 1971 on Atlantic Records. It is their first album with guitarist Steve Howe, who replaced Peter Banks in 1970, and their last in the 1970s to feature keyboardist Tony Kaye. Violent Femmes is the debut album by Violent Femmes. Mostly recorded in July 1982, the album was released by Slash Records on vinyl and on cassette in April 1983, and on CD in 1987 with 2 extra tracks Ugly and Gimme the Car. Tres Hombres is the third album by the American rock band ZZ Top. It was released in 1973. The album was the first of many times the band worked with Terry Manning as engineer. It was a successful combination as the release was the band's first commercial breakthrough. London Calling is the third studio album by English punk rock band The Clash. It was released in the United Kingdom on December 14, 1979 by CBS Records, and in the United States in January 1980 by Epic Records. Ghost in the Machine is the fourth studio album by English rock band The Police, released in 1981. Much of the material in this album was inspired by Arthur Koestler's The Ghost in the Machine, which also provided the title. Exile on Main Street is a double album by English rock band The Rolling Stones. It was released on May 12, 1972 by Rolling Stones Records. The album's music incorporates rock and roll, blues, soul, country, and gospel genres. Ramones is the debut studio album by the American punk rock band Ramones, released on February 4, 1976 by Sire Records. After hit parody redditor Lisa Robinson saw the band at a gig in New York City, she wrote about them in an article and contacted Danny Fields, insisting he be their manager. The Joshua Tree is the fifth studio album by rock band U2. It was produced by Daniel Lanois and Brian Eno, and was released on March 9, 1987 on Island Records. In contrast to the ambient experimentation of their 1984 release The Unforgettable Fire, on the Joshua Tree the band aimed for a harder-hitting sound within the limitation of conventional song structures. American Beauty is the sixth album by the rock band The Grateful Dead. It was recorded between August and September 1970 and originally released in November 1970 by Warner Brothers Records. The album continued the folk rock and country music explored on Workingman's Dead and prominently features the lyrics of Robert Hunter. Yankee Hotel Foxtrot is the fourth album by Chicago-based rock band Wilco. The album was completed in 2001, but Reprise Records, a Warner Music Group label, refused to release it. Wilco acquired the rights to the album when they subsequently left the label. The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is a double concept album recorded and released in 1974 by the British progressive rock band Genesis. It was their sixth studio album, and the last to feature original singer and frontman Peter Gabriel. Sticky Fingers is the ninth British and 11th American studio album by English rock band The Rolling Stones, released in April 1971. It is the band's first album of the 1970s and its first release on the band's newly formed label, Rolling Stones Records, after having been contracted since 1963 with Decca Records in the UK and London Records in the US. Paranoid is the second studio album by English rock band Black Sabbath. Released in September 1970, it was the band's only LP to top the UK albums chart until the release of 13 in 2013. Paranoid contains several of the band's signature songs, including Iron Man, War Pigs and the title track, which was the band's only top 20 hit, reaching number 4 in the UK charts.